Kevin Van Mckinney was born June 3, 1963, in Harris County out of Houston, Texas, to Arthur Mckinney and Sue Scoggins. Kevin was the youngest of 6 children. His mother, Sue, relinquished custody of Kevin at the very young age of 18 months.
I was actually a ward of the state because I was an orphan.
Along with 2 of his siblings to the state of Texas in 1964.
It was a blessing, as it turns out.
She then moved back to North Carolina with her 3 oldest children. Kevin and his 2 siblings were subsequently separated after becoming wards of the state of Texas. Kevin went through 13 foster homes before he found himself, at the age of 7, being evaluated in a mental hospital outside of Amarillo. The hospital was at odds on what to do with Kevin, who at this time had a limited ability to read, write, and as you can well imagine, a lot of anger.
If I wouldn't have went to Boys Ranch, I'd be in prison or dead.
The hospital decided to reach out to Cal Farley's Boys Ranch. Sherm Harriman called Winston Chandler, and Winston did his own evaluation of Kevin and concluded that all Kevin needed was someone to hold on to. And to hold on to he did. Kevin held on to Winston's belt loop for 2 years due to the constant trouble that surrounded Kevin. Winston and Boys Ranch gave Kevin the structure that he needed for the first time in his life. Even though Kevin wasn't of age to be in Winston's dorm, the ranch made allowances, and that's when Kevin was finally in a family environment that would bring him love, discipline, religion, education, a willingness to learn, and an aptitude for achieving goals.
We learned all the same principles. We had all the same opportunities. It was how we took advantage of those opportunities that propelled us through life.
Kevin's first couple of years at the ranch were rough, to say the least. Years of bouncing from foster home to foster home had made an impression on his young mind, and he was hell-bent on not conforming to Winston's and the ranch's expectations. But Winston's consistency won out. Winston had made Kevin the promise that he would see him graduate, and Winston kept that promise. Kevin graduated from Boys Ranch in 1981 with a love for religion, reading, music, and sports, especially wrestling and rodeo.
I was scared to death when I left the ranch because I had nobody to go to. So I soaked everything up like a sponge from all the adults and tried not to make those same mistakes.
After graduation, Kevin took the summer to work harvest, but made his way back to the area to enlist in the United States Army. Kevin served a total of 13 years. For the first 3 years as a diesel tank mechanic and then as an x-ray tech. During those 13 years, Kevin had the opportunity to live in many different places, both within the States and abroad. While based in New York, he met his first wife, Christine. They married in 1988, with their first son, Travis, being born July of 1989. In 1990, while based in North Carolina, they separated but were able to reconcile prior to Kevin going overseas. During Kevin's time abroad, he became a member of the ERCA, or the European Rodeo Cowboy Association, where his many talents that had been developed during the time at Boys Ranch came into play, and he was able to thrive in the ERCA circuit. Kevin would take home the All-Around Cowboy Award in 1994 and 1995 by competing in bronc riding, bareback riding, bull riding, and calf roping. Kevin took to heart the title of All-Around Cowboy and was even able to display his talent and agility for bull fighting too. While in Germany, Kevin and Christine had their second son, Brandon, their St. Patrick's Day baby. Kevin and Christine made their way back to the States after being overseas for 4 years, and at Kevin's request, they found their way to Fort Sill in Lawton, Oklahoma. Kevin was able to continue his love for rodeoing while being stationed at Fort Sill, but was transitioned out of the Army in 1996 due to a reduction in force. Times were lean for Kevin and his family. He was moving towards being fully self-employed while adjusting to being out of the Army. While making this transition, Kevin met a fellow military man named Greg Lisco, who introduced him to the grain cleaning business. This friendship would prove to be invaluable then and still holds true today. By 1997, he had started making a name for himself in building fences, barns, and entryways. Kevin initially set up in town to clean grain, but transitioned to his own portable grain cleaning machine. And with the help from his good friend Greg, that would allow him to move from farm to farm, cleaning wheat, barley, and oats for his customers. Kevin was fast becoming a recognized name in the community due to his hard work, his willingness to help others, and his penchant for quality work. During this time, tragedy struck. While building fence with his small boys, Travis and Brandon, the unthinkable happened, and Brandon, who had just turned 4, was killed in an accident. The tragedy was beyond devastating to Kevin, and as Greg would say, only Kevin's faith in God allowed him to pull through that time.
Things have happened in my life. He's used them to mold me into the man I am today.
Kevin and Christine worked on their relationship, but the hardship of losing a child can be unbearable. And even with the addition of their son Dakota in June of 1999, their marriage was unable to move past the loss of Brandon, and they eventually divorced. After the divorce, Christine decided to take the boys, Travis and Dakota, and move back home to New York. After the divorce, Kevin stayed in the area to continue growing his business. But shortly after moving back to New York, Christine needed Travis, their oldest son, to move back to Oklahoma to be with Kevin for a short time. Travis then returned to New York, but eventually made it back home to Oklahoma after he turned 18. Kevin resumed his fencing and grain cleaning work, as well as going back on the road to offer hotshot services during the off-season. During this time, Kevin received another call from Christine. She needed Dakota, their youngest son, to come live with Kevin in Oklahoma, and by this time, Kevin had remarried. Kevin and Tamara were married for several years, but due to several issues, they separated and eventually divorced in 2015. Kevin then married his third wife, Lisa, in November 2015, but that marriage was doomed for failure, even with marriage counseling, and they divorced after a brief reconciliation in September of 2018. By this time, Dakota, his youngest son, had graduated high school, and it was just the two of them. Kevin was still working in the area, cleaning grain and welding while helping with the area spring roundup, and donated to the FFA annual auction. Kevin is known as one of the few good men still around, and he is much admired for his work ethic and his contribution to the community. Kevin continued his pursuit of love, which landed him outside the norm in May of 2019 when he received a Facebook friend request from a woman out of Kingston, Oklahoma. Accepting that request would prove to be, as he would say, one of the best decisions of his life, and he ultimately married the love of his life, Christy, on October 15, 2020 in San Antonio, Texas, and gained two more sons, Dalton and Wyatt. After returning stateside in 1995, Kevin has been able to reconnect with fellow classmates and has been able to participate in the annual Boys Ranch Alumni Reunion and golf tournament. Kevin has been serving on the alumni board since 2018 and contributes annually to the silent auction.
So we're all kin. I mean, it's one big family.
Kevin is highly admired in his community and has built a reputation for being fair, honest, hardworking, and dependable. He stands behind the work that he provides and is always willing to assist those in need, thanks to the ethics, morals, and values that were installed in him at Boys Ranch under Winston's care and guidance.
The thing about the Alumni Association is if some of those that are graduating now, if you come and get hooked up with an alumni that can mentor you to help you do that, we're more than willing to do it.
His faith in the Lord is still very much a part of him today, as well as his love of gospel music. Kevin took up the guitar at the age of 40, which he plays singing hymns and leads the church in song on Sunday mornings. Kevin is enjoying life to the fullest these days with his wife Christy. They enjoy traveling to locations and checking off any adventures that might come their way, spending their downtime with their boys and their closest friends to either out on Lake Texoma, up in the snow-covered mountains of Colorado, or floating a river in Texas is what they hold most dear.
I think God's blessed me.
Kevin is what Cal Farley called his payday, someone that had gone to Boys Ranch as a last resort in life and became the man he is today. Prosperous, hardworking, honest, dependable, giving back to his church, community, and the Cal Farley's alumni. Cal and Mimi are smiling down from heaven, very proud of Kevin Mckinney.